Today I have another clip from Michael Saylor's interview with Tucker Carlson in November of 2021. Yesterday, Tucker released an interview with a pro-Bitcoin Argentinian presidential candidate that already has almost 325 million views. Tucker visiting South America is what brought me back to looking at his original Michael Saylor interview. This is a clip from early in the interview and has Michael sharing Bitcoin's origin story with Tucker. Enjoy the clip.
The whole point of Bitcoin is to escape the inflation vortex that has consumed all these previous empires.
The point of Bitcoin is to fix the money. And money is energy, and energy is life. And if I keep sucking the energy out of the economy, I'm sucking the oxygen out of your system. Either, under the best case, you perform poorly. Under the worst case, I suffocate you to death or freeze you to death. That's the problem. That's why empires collapse. That's why economies collapse. And the problem, it's not just a problem for an individual. It's not just a problem for a family. It's a problem for every institution. It's a problem for every company. It's a problem for every city, every municipality, every government, every civilization. They all have this problem. And you can generally trace the problem to, I fought a war I couldn't afford to fight, and I paid for it with money I didn't have. Yeah. Right? If you declare war on COVID, you've got a war. You declare war in Vietnam, you declare war on fill in the blank. History is full of wars. If I had to fight them with taxes, then eventually my population would say no more. We don't want to pay the tax. If I fight them by inflating the coinage, then I get a couple of years, 2, 3, 4 years before people realize it. Eventually I just collapse the currency. So money is essential to civilization. The problem is inflation. And why does it happen? It's a natural human condition because as you have an authority that controls the money, the temptation to inflate the money supply is omnipresent and inescapable. And every civilization has suffered from it at one point in time. What is Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is the world's first engineered monetary system. And what happened is a set of engineers, nameless engineers, recoiled in horror after the great financial crisis with all the bank bailouts, and they looked and they said, this just isn't fair, it isn't right, we want to create a better money. And they used two technologies. They used the internet, the idea that I could network hundreds of thousands or millions of computers, and they used cryptography, the idea that I could cryptographically sign something so that it could not be tampered with anyone, friend or foe. And using those two technologies, they conceptualized the idea of an immutable ledger, if you will, a bank in cyberspace. What if 100 people got together, 100 people with money got together, and they said, we're going to create a bank in cyberspace. And we want to put our money there, and we don't trust each other. We don't trust the government. We don't trust any corporation. We don't even trust any one computer. So we create a program that keeps track of a ledger, 21 million coins, or shares in the bank, divisible by 100 million, called down to a Satoshi. So 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis. You don't have to know that. All you need to know is there's 21 million coin units. You can't make any more. And they wanted to create it so that they could send their money to each other, to anybody in the network. They could store it for 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 1,000,000 years, forever. And they don't have to trust anybody. So they created this idea of Bitcoin. It's an asset that's protected by cryptography, and it's stored on a ledger. The software administers the ledger. The twist is we distributed the software on thousands and thousands of separate computers. Every Bitcoin node is running a copy of the ledger. So everybody in the world that has their money in the bank has a copy of all of the money in the bank and all the transactions since the beginning of time. So it's the immutable truth. Every 10 minutes, the system batches a set of transactions and then redistributes the money based upon the instructions of the owners. If I want to send you my Bitcoin, I send it and it goes to you. And every single computer on the network updates that. And they all check it cryptographically using modern encryption. Now, how do we defend the network? There's really 3 nodes of interest to make this compelling. The first node is that Bitcoin node that keeps track of that ledger. It's the most secure database in the world, and it's a database of immutable truth. It's the ledger of money. The second node is a miner. It's SHA-256, or it's an encrypting miner that's generating hash functions to protect the network, and there are millions of them. And they're all competing with each other to build the next block. There's only 1 out of 2 million involved in this network. It's like every miner gives you a lottery ticket, and 1 of the 2 million will get to build the next block and will get paid a lot of money, like $300,000, and you don't know which one. So the miners are a wall of encrypted energy. They're converting electricity into hashes, and then inside that wall of electricity, or wall of energy, is the Bitcoin ledger, which is distributed in a decentralized fashion. And there's one other interesting node called a Lightning node. This is a layer 2 decentralized system. This is decentralized payments. It'll move small amounts of Bitcoin at the speed of light programmatically, almost for free. Okay, so Bitcoin is a decentralized piece of software. The brilliance of it is it's a bank in cyberspace that nobody controls, nobody can corrupt. It's a bank run by incorruptible software offering a global, affordable, simple, secure savings account for everybody on Earth that has neither the means nor the inclination to run their own hedge fund. Right? You have some money, you have life savings, you simply don't want to lose it. You want to put it in a bank. So Bitcoin is that bank in cyberspace. These engineers came up with this idea.
Who are the engineers?
Well, we don't know. We know some of them. They're the cypherpunks. They were into cryptography. The most important of them was Satoshi, who we don't know who it was. Satoshi wrote the white paper, created the first version of Bitcoin, gave it to the rest. And initially, there wasn't any money in the network. They just ran it for a year as a hobby, right? And then over time, there was a famous transaction where somebody bought a pizza, right, for like 10,000 Bitcoin, one pizza. And that was the first transaction. And then the network gradually began to monetize as people bought into the network. And so it's like a fire in cyberspace.
Should we be nervous that we don't know the identity of the founder?
No, I don't think we should be nervous. We should be joyful, because for Bitcoin to work, it needs to be money of the people. It needs to be not controlled by any individual. It needs to be not under the thumb of a founder or a corporation or one strong holder. The most important thing Satoshi did was he created this gift. He gave it to the world. I assume a he. Some people think she. Some people think it's multiple people. But Satoshi gave this gift to the world and disappeared. And Satoshi mined about 1 million coins getting it started, but those coins never moved. Never. They've never been moved. Satoshi's never appeared again. And then the network was in essence a community development all around the world for the next decade, and it's simply grown from $1 million in the bank to 10 million to 100 million to 1 billion to 10 billion to 100 billion. In March of our second quarter of 2020, it was about $180 billion in this network, and that's where I got involved. I was late, but when I got involved, what I saw was an engineered monetary asset, a digital gold, if you will, sitting on an open big tech monetary network. And I said, this is an economic imperative because this solves the problem of inflation for a corporation with lots of cash. I had a lot of cash, and I thought I was going to lose all of it if I didn't invest it in something. And I said, it is also a moral imperative this is a technology to give property rights to 8 billion people on the planet that don't have property rights. Right? Bitcoin is the highest form of property the human race has ever invented. And I'll explain why in a second. There's 2 billion people that don't have a bank. Right? You can give everybody on the planet a bank and property rights that cannot be corrupted and cannot be inflated and confiscated. You can give it to them for the price of a free download on Android. If you got a $50 phone and you can download some software, you can have your own bank, your own property rights, your own economic freedom and economic empowerment. So it's a moral imperative. And then finally, it's a technical imperative. You're talking about the digital transformation of everything else. The digital transformation of property, of gold, of banks, the digital transformation of war, the digital transformation of government, of security. It's a deep idea, but in essence, if the economy's got $500 trillion worth of property and corporations and stuff in it, well, digital property as capital, as money, is worth that amount. It's worth half of everything, right? And so we never figured out how to digitally transform money or digitally transform capital. We did digitally transform photos and videos and education and books and relationships and communications.
Right.
And the secret to success of Google and Amazon and Apple and Facebook is the digital transformation of entertainment and education and communications. But think about what it means to digitally transform $10 trillion of gold or $100 trillion of property or $100 trillion of currency. So these engineers, they wanted to solve that problem. And of course, there's so many big ideas. One is, it was engineered to be a digital gold with none of gold's defects. 21 million coins, but you can't make any more. The problem with gold is gold miners inflate the gold supply, right, and gold bankers inflate the gold paper supply. They dump gold derivatives on the market. With every other asset on Earth, anything else you can own, houses, gold, silver, commodities, stocks, bonds, when the price goes up, the supply increases. If I increase the price of any stock by a factor of 10, the company issues more stock.
Of course.
If I buy all the bonds, all the municipal bonds, the price of bonds go up, people issue more bonds. Right? If I drive up the price of gold by a factor of 10, people print more gold or mine more gold. Bitcoin's the only thing in the world that's inelastic to price. If the price of Bitcoin triples, you can't make any more. If the price goes up by a factor of a million, you can't make any more. Now, so Tucker, let me just give you one more engineering insight. In engineering, there's something called conservation of energy.
Yes. And
the whole point of conservation of energy is energy can either be made or destroyed. There has to be conservation of it. The mathematical metaphor, the mathematical analogy to that is proper math. 10 plus 10 equals 20. 2 plus 2 equals 4. If 10 plus 10 ever starts equaling 18, you got a problem.
Yeah.
If you have a bathtub and there's a leak, if you have a swimming pool with a leak, if I have an electric system with a short circuit, if I have a leak in my engineering system, nothing works. Nothing in the world of ocean engineering, aeronautical engineering, electrical engineering, nothing works lest you respect conservation of energy. The problem with inflation is inflation does not respect conservation of energy. I've got a leak in the system. I've designed a currency which is not conservative. So properly understood, if you said, I want a conservative money supply, a conservative money supply would be there's $10 billion in the economy and nobody prints anymore.
Right.
And that's the Austrian economic sound money principle. Bitcoin is a conservative monetary system. It's the first system that respects the laws of thermodynamics and the laws of physics and the laws of math, which means it is true and pure, right? It has integrity. If you have integrity, if you have something which is true and pure and you have durability, then you can build a family around it, a life around it, a company around it, or civilization around it. Steel is concentrated energy in metallic form. You ever walk in a steel plant and you look at the energy going into steel refining?
Yeah.
It's concentrated energy. The history of the human race is the civilization that channels energy most effectively always wins. Steel trumps iron. Iron trumps bronze. Bronze trumps rocks. Bows and arrows trump the guy with the spear. The guy with the spear beats the guy with the knife. It's always a matter. If you have air power, you beat land power. Sea power beats the army, and nuclear power trumps everybody. And so, if I have steel, I have concentrated metallic energy. I can create a skyscraper punched up 100 stories in New York. How long will it last? 100 years. How long will a steel ship last? Longer than you will last, as long as it doesn't corrode. Wooden ships? Not so much. Wooden ships rot, right? You want to build a building and punch it up against gravity and hold it 100 years, you need concentrated energy. If you want to build a trust fund that'll last 100 years, how do you save $100,000 for 100 years and give it to your great-grandkids? You put it in the US dollar, you use 99% of your economic energy. If you're maybe 99.5%. You put it in gold, gold supply doubles every 30 years. The gold bankers keep inflating the gold. Maybe you lose 90% of your economic energy. But that would be a lucky happenstance, because just about every country on earth seized the gold from their citizens in the last 100 years. Everybody, even the US, they take your gold.
Yeah.
So you want to save money for 100 years. You can't do it with the currency. You can't do it with gold. Which company is going to be around 100 years? You want to put $100,000 into real estate in Florida? Can you buy $100,000? Let's say you could. 2% tax, 2% maintenance, 4% maintenance fee, 4% of $100,000, $4,000 a year. Half-life, like, your money's not going to last 100 years. How do I preserve my property, which is economic energy, which is capital, which is money? How do I preserve that? I need something harder, right? More durable. I need a steel. I need an economic steel. Steel is concentrated metallic energy. Bitcoin is concentrated digital energy. It's energy in digital form. It's vacuum-packed food. It's something sitting in orbit, right? Right? I eliminated the friction on energy. What's the half-life of energy? If I take a megawatt of power and I sell it at 12 cents a kilowatt hour, I have about $1 million. Okay, I give you $1 million of electricity. How long can you hold it in a battery? You lose 2% a month. You can't hold it very long. You're going to lose 24% depletion rate in a battery of electricity. How do you send $1 million of electricity from New York to Tokyo? You can't. You can send electricity 500 miles over a power line, you'll lose 6%. Send it 10 times, you'll lose 60%. It doesn't move. Convert that energy, that electricity, into digital energy, a la Bitcoin. You upgrade it. If you were to convert a megawatt of power via a Bitcoin miner into Bitcoin, you'd have about $5 million worth of Bitcoin. You can hold it forever. You can send it to Tokyo for a nickel. Okay? You can put it in a trust fund, right? Bitcoin's going up 170% a year for a decade. The S&P 500 index is going up 14% a year on average for a decade. Gold is flat. It's not going anywhere. It's getting demonetized. It's a dead rock in a basement. It's not fast enough. You can't put gold on an iPhone. Gold's getting depleted, inflated, and manipulated away by the bankers and the miners. So, Bitcoin is simply pure economic energy. These engineers, Satoshi and all of Satoshi's compatriots, what they did is created an engineered monetary asset on an open, permissionless network that anybody could participate in. Any country, any company, any individual. You don't need a bank. You don't need to ask permission, right? It is the ultimate egalitarian system.